Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming here for the presentations. I'm Manasa, I am a second year fellow at CDS, and today I'd be talking about my fellow project which is Art Beyond Entertainment, and I've looked at ways in which music can be used or generated using AI and ML and could be used for other purposes than just entertainment in say mental health concerns or productivity or all of those. We'll look into that, but before that I'll play a few sounds and I would want you all to share what that makes you feel, what emotions and feelings does these sounds bring in you. I'll play the first one. Okay, can someone share like what, yeah,
I feel like I'm vibing in a video game.
makes sense? And how does that make you feel? Like vibing in the sense, are you uplifted? Do you feel happy? Do you feel motivated? What does that, like, what's the emotion it's generating?
Maybe motivated.
Makes sense. Anyone else? Yeah.
I kind of felt like it reminded me of the show Stranger Things a little
Yeah.
bit. And
Okay.
a little like kind of scary, like
Yeah.
what am I getting into?
Yeah. These are how I thought about it: dark, weird, scary, sci-fi, retro, and trippy. I have few other clips I'll play quickly, and I would like someone else to share their thoughts. Okay, can someone share how that small clip made you feel? What emotions? Yeah.
It makes me feel like I'm in a spa. It's
Mm.
very meditative and
Yeah.
like peaceful.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, that also made me feel peaceful. Reminded me of nature, meditative, soft, reminded me of space and ocean. And then the last one. Yeah, if you can quickly share what that emotion, what that felt like. Yeah.
It sort of felt like sometimes the intro to a video that's about technology on YouTube or something.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like curiosity or discovery.
Yeah. So for me, it made me feel elevated. It made me feel uplifting, ambient. Remind me of what I would play when I'm traveling. Very atmospheric. So what I'm getting at here is science says that depending on every individual's mood and their feeling at that point of time, the music differs, and like how you perceive music and what emotions it calls in from you inside differs. And that's where we are getting at is we would be looking at how music today is generalized based on genre and is hence also recommended and customized based on genres. But what I would be getting at here is how can you use AI and ML to generate music that specifically caters to every individual needs and not just customized to customer segments. So I'd be looking at the context to the concept. How did I come across it, and what are the reasons behind why this is a viable product or viable idea to be thinking about capitalizing and commercializing for. We'd be looking at who are the different players in the ecosystem, how could they come together to help make this more a reality. We'd be looking at the scope to right now and also in the future, depending on how it progresses. We'd be looking at the limitations it has, and then we'd also be looking at recommendations in terms of how players in the system today should have to take their innovation forward to improve on this. So the context is AI and ML can today draw insights and customize music creations to individual listeners' preferences. According to evidence-based practice, music therapy is, or evidence-based research, music therapy is identified to be addressing physical and emotional, cognitive and social needs of individuals. And in the current scope of commercial use, music unfortunately is not used that way. The labeling for certain music on streaming websites or on um, apps like Calm or Headspace are used or are like are divided based on just like broad divisions and broad categories and not personalized to each and every single one. And these are the players in the ecosystem. It's not limited to it. The reason I say that is because you can add people, you can add maybe complementers as lift manufacturers, because elevators have music that plays, or you could talk about many other things, but we would limit our current research and whatever I have spoken to, people have spoken to, do these three categories. The first would be music creators, the second would be practitioners, people who work with um, people who have mental health crisis or concerns and could use music therapy. Individual users like you and me, how can we use this? How can we use a use case where this innovation can help us? The third one would be disruptors or complementers. I spoke to a few of each of them, and I would like to share my insights briefly. For music creators, I think this is where the biggest problem arises. Today, music creators are people who make music creatively by their own means, but using AI and ML necessarily doesn't have to mean the same. So, music creation would become a much bigger concept in terms of you and I can sit in front of a machine that can generate music based on the preferences you are asking for, and that takes away from the creativeness of it. So the music creator ecosystem today do not show a much inclination towards using AI and ML for creation, and that comes from both people I've spoken to her who play a certain instrument and play this instrument for their friends, and also broadly music producing companies that also think that using AI or ML doesn't necessarily fall into their purview or encourage for more creators to come through their own creative sense, which could be one of the biggest disruptors to more commercialization of this idea. And then the second one would be practitioners and individual users. I think I have heard um, two separate ideas from both of them. For practitioners, think about psychotherapists, think about therapists, think about clinical practitioners who deal with users or who deal with patients that have mental health concerns. For them, this is gray area. They are not necessarily excited about wanting to use music therapy because they believe that there's still a lot of research to be still done in this place. But they are not entirely averse to the idea of wanting to use if there is some development that's been made in this place. And for individual users like you and me, I think we necessarily do not um, have problems with what apps like Spotify or Calm or Headspace give us in terms of music, but we would definitely like it if we had more customization to what kind of music would drive your productivity versus mine. There are people who listen to Taylor Swift and do their work. There are people who listen to Drake and do their work. There are people who listen to psychedelic rock and do their work. So if you type productivity playlist or you type calming playlist on Spotify, we all get the same recommendations, which defeats the purpose of why we have playlists in the first place. And for disruptors and complementers, we have Neurable, which is a hardware company. They make headsets that can process your brain signals during your productivity and replicate them to increase your productivity, which is interesting, I think. And then there are complementers, like I said, Headspace and Calm, who could use this technology to make their own music and make commercialize that aspect. From their perspective, I think for disruptors, since practitioners and music creators alike do not necessarily complement or do not necessarily say much about this particular idea and this particular technology, disruptors are at a loss of who do they sell and who do they use to give confidence in their idea. And for complementers, again, it comes down to what would drive customer acquisition and customer retention. And if this idea is not strongly encouraged by the other creators and other ecosystem players, it loses the purpose for them to have to innovate and put money into R&D to build this product for them. And that comes to the idea, the scope, or more so the limitation as well, is today this entire idea or technology is very slow because this space unfortunately falls into a feedback loop that hampers innovation. So think about players. The players would want to spend money and implement this idea only if there was strong research that they could then use in their marketing and branding to be able to sell it to their users. And then research then comes to an idea where people would want to do research on this, spend money on this, spend time on this only if there was ways they could sell this research in turn to players. And it comes down to pointing fingers to who is going to do what first, and then the entire ecosystem will then flourish. And more importantly, the main part aspect of this is the regulatory aspect of it. Like I said earlier about music, like how would a creator want look at AI generated music? Whose trademark would it be? Who would have the royalty to the music or to the sounds that are generated? And more importantly, also I think it comes down to idea of safe and trustworthy use of individuals' data. So if I want to generate data that's specific to Tom's interests, now I need to have a lot of information on what music really interests Tom, and then the idea comes to who is using this data and how are they using it, in the sense that you're trying to create unnecessary products that might infringe your privacy. And then the final aspect is, like I said earlier, there's not much we could do about the feedback loop, but there are smaller things each of these players could do that wouldn't take significantly high R&D or time or efforts from them. And the first one would be streaming services. So today, as I said, if I select calm music, I just said calm music and this is what I got. I have like calm instrumental music, calm Taylor Swift songs, chill songs, classical music songs. So for me, I think this is where I would start, is for Spotify or for streaming, for Amazon Music or other streaming services, to have to personalize what calm means for you. And that would either come from user survey. Say you're listening to a certain genre of music, a certain type of music, you send a survey then to your users to want to select what's the emotion that it's creating for them. And that would then take you to a process of being able to customize even calm music for them. That's where you could start, but going forward, that's the least resistance path. And then for hardware plus plus, I said plus plus because it's not limited to this. There are many other ways you could use it. So smart headphones, like I said about Neurable, they are another company that's trying to incorporate these recommendations or this idea into how they could help their users increase their productivity. And this doesn't have to necessarily limit to hardware or specific to someone who's producing products, but could be expanded to anything such as a meeting. There could be an ambient music that could be playing right now that could possibly improve all our productivity and concentration on what I'm speaking. But these are different other ideas or use cases where you could have some sort of test and control that's happening, low efforts, low time investment. And then third party users are, I don't know if you've ever tried Agile Brain. It is by a Dartmouth alumni, and what they do is they give you super fast images, and you select images, and after like 15-20 images they'll tell you what your mood is, how your mood is going to be, how can you improve it. And that's how I would look at this, and this music, or like the entire idea of using AI/ML generated music, is how can these ideas, or like these third party users or third party websites that are helping you increase your emotional well-being or productivity, can change or add this as a additional uh, use case for them, just to help individuals take things into their hands and help increase their well-being. And then the last one would be practitioners, and this again leads back to why would someone want to build a medically approved product that or service that would be very expensive, very time taking, have to pass a lot of regulations, is if there is willingness to choose from practitioners. And that comes down to the idea that there has to be some research that again like has to be promoted in the process of wanting to send it to practitioners. There is research today, and a lot of practitioners that I've spoken to through my old jobs and through the people I work with, I consult with, is they do not think it's good enough right now, and they would need more research to prove that music indeed can be generated and can help well-being but yes, another thing is they could probably start incorporating this into their treatments, incorporating this into their daily lives with their patients, and see how that's working. Because if there is a push from practitioners, if there's an article someone's writing in a journal, that could help more researchers who want to focus on this space. Yeah, that's about it. In this process, I've spoken to all these different types of people just to understand what the different players would want, or like what they think is the biggest friction in their journey to want to adopt it. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you think about it and how you feel about this. Thank you.
Just one question.
Yeah.
How do they anticipate measuring effectiveness of some of this?
Oh yeah. So when I spoke about productivity, that would mean for what Neurable does, productivity necessarily means that how long can you focus on the work you're doing at one go. In the sense that, let's say today I can sit down for 30 minutes and do a homework, but I would need a break immediately after 30 minutes. But if you can replicate those sounds and understand the brain waves in those 30 minutes and try to replicate it to elongate that to 40 minutes, that's probably increase in productivity. For practitioners, that would look like if I can calm you down. So there are different techniques and tools that practitioners share with their patients to calm them down. And that today limits to the idea of thinking about your thoughts and addressing them and working on them. But if you could help with music therapy, which could take away the dependency that patients have on their practitioners today, in the sense that, oh, like I am nervous right now, or I am having an anxiety attack, instead of wanting to have to find some space where I need someone to talk to, the first thing I could do as a first aid is maybe listen to some music that will immediately calm me down. And that music is better served if it comes from a practitioner's perspective, that it definitely works for you, versus if you are sitting there while having a panic attack also looking for music that's calming you down. So these would be some ways in which you would measure the effectiveness of whether this particular therapy or using this AI and ML generated sounds and music are working for you in the benefit.